Okay, we are at the top of the hour, so we're going to get started. If you want to join our iClicker Reef course, please follow the instructions on the screen. Additionally, these instructions have been sent to you in your registration confirmation. You can consult them there. Also, one of our a couple of our client success folks are on the line to answer any questions about joining the course, and they can send along these instructions as well. I'm going to move on from this screen at this point. So welcome to our webinar today on creating connections wherever class is, wherever it's going to be this fall. This is a roundtable discussion with a couple of faculty members and an administrator. So let's get to it. Let's meet your panelists for today. So first off, we have Grace Tuttle, who's an instructional technologist in the Learning Technology Solutions Group at Boise State University. She joined this group in January of 2016. She has served in the United States Air Force, Idaho State Legislature, Whitworth University, and Idaho Division of Vocational Rehabilitation. She holds a Bachelor of Science degree in Management, Computer Information Systems from Park University, a Master's of Public Administration from University of Oklahoma, and an Education Specialist, Adult Organizational Learning and Leadership, that's a mouthful, Grace, from the University of Idaho. She's a doctoral candidate in Instructional Design and Technology at Idaho State University. So that is Grace. Now we'll move on to Matt, who is a professor of physics and astronomy at University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire. Matt has been teaching physics for over 20 years at the University of Wisconsin-Eau Claire, often exploring new techniques and technologies that can enhance the classroom experience for students, including online homework systems and pre and post lecture support videos. For the past 15 years, he's been using iClicker systems in his classrooms, often beta testing new instructor-driven features to help make them serve instructors and students in their classroom and beyond. So welcome, Matt. Next, we have Solina Lindahl. She is a lecturer in economics at California Polytechnic State University. Selina's been teaching principles of econ, comparative economic systems, and poverty and discrimination since 1955 in both 1995, apologize, in large and small classes. She's happiest experimenting with new technologies and promising pedagogy. She's worked with the Chancellor's Office of the CSU as the economics lead faculty for course redesign with technology program, and with her campus's co-leading learning communities for instructors of large classes group. She's found active learning to be successful and stimulating strategy, and is always looking for probing questions and good ideas for video tutorials. So welcome to all of our panelists. We're so excited to have you on the line today. What we're going to be doing, guys, is asking you guys as a group a couple of iClicker questions, and then letting our panelists respond to those questions as well, and then also answering some separate questions to the panelists. We will be holding time towards the end of the webinar for Q&A. Also, I was remiss in pointing out earlier, feel free to send your questions along as you go. We'll be gathering those for the end. Also, we are recording this, and we'll send this as a follow-up to you guys. Okay, so let's get started with an iClicker question. Hopefully, we've got about 20 people in the course so far. Let us know, how did your spring go? Just tap on the image that corresponds with how you feel about spring. Were you killing it like our little baby here, winning it? Feel a little bit of like the dog in the house that's on fire, or were you treading water, keeping your head above water, like our little friend down here at the bottom? So you just tap on the image that most closely corresponds with your feelings. And this is not an all-inclusive answer set here, but okay, we're starting to see responses come through. Okay, we're gonna give it a couple more seconds, up to 40. Okay, we'll close it out. Okay, let's see what everybody says. Okay, we've actually got a lot of people kind of in the middle area. A couple people nailed it, the spring was great. A couple people, the feeling of the house on fire. But a lot of folks said they felt like, they kept their head above water this spring. In prepping for this webinar, that's kind of what we were talking about a lot. Okay, so that was a fun question to get started. Now we're going to switch over to a short answer question. Let us know, what immediate changes did you make that worked? So whenever school closings started happening in March and all the changes started taking place, what immediate changes did you make that worked for you, for your students, for your class? If you would just keep answering this question in the background, I'm going to leave polling open. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually pose this question over to two of our panelists to let us know how spring went for them. So, and then we're going to circle back to your answers right after this. So, Matt and Solina, let's start off with you guys. Matt first. How were you teaching before COVID-19 hit, and what changes did you have to make really quickly in spring?
Well, as everyone, we went from completely face-to-face, at least in my case, where I was meeting them 4 days a week plus labs, doing all of that instruction myself, and we went entirely online. So one of the things I did very quickly was I pivoted to find high quality materials that I've seen before and worked with before, like Flip It for Physics. And I supplemented that with some assigned readings, some personal videos, introducing some new content, and then did a lot of problem solving techniques. For physics, there's a lot of practice that has to come from that. So that change in content delivery, and I assessed what was going well on the fly. And I really was trying to focus on what was going to have those students stay engaged and have them succeed in spite of all the changes that they were facing. So just moving things to online and using new resources.
Okay, great. Solina, what changes did you have to make in spring, and how were you teaching before the changes hit?
Yeah, so I also was mostly face-to-face. I have a giant sort of intro class, and that was all face-to-face. And then I have some smaller upper division classes, which were kind of hybrid. And we're in the quarter system, so it was COVID hit kind of right at the time where we were in between quarters. So I went completely asynchronous in the spring quarter, and I made that choice mostly because you just never know what's going on in students' homes. Do they have the bandwidth, et cetera? I will say that as much as I was hoping to have community and engagement with the students, it didn't really happen. So in the summer that I'm teaching starting next week, and then in the fall, I'll be sort of doing, I'll be trying to add in some more formative assessment. Like Matt, I looked for good quality sort of solutions that are out there to just keep probing the questions for students, but I need more than that. So this fall I'll be doing sort of hybrid, synchronous, asynchronous, and we'll be using clickers again, as I have been for a long time, but I'll be using them in the new ways that we have available now with the assignment and quiz functions that are there.
That's good to hear from you guys. You had to just move online and do the best you could for spring, and being able to apply those changes moving forward. Let's hear from the group on what immediate changes they made that worked this spring. We have about 21 responses, so I'm going to cut this off. Let's look at them. Let me make this bigger. Establish routine, added online office hours. That's a great idea. Very clear instructions, plan with students each week. Taught classes synchronously through Blackboard, switched from exams and quizzes to assignments, added polling, more interactive activities. That's the core of what we're going to be talking about a lot today. Recording lectures, activities to create connections at the start of class, using discussion boards, completely distant learning. What's interesting to me about this is that there's not just one thing here. Folks had to redirect a lot. Matt and Solina, do you have any comments on these answers that are coming through?
I would say that one of the things that I'm really focusing on right now is establishing patterns so that students know what's expected of them every week. And for my classes, it is consistent week to week what is going to be expected. And so if I can have that clear right up front, I think it'll get them off on the right foot for success throughout the semester.
Really good point. Also, this had to be flexible with deadlines and being more gracious. I think that was a really Okay, and just flipping over to the word cloud functionality, you can see which words were used the most and really online making that transition. Okay, great answers. Let's move on from the admin perspective. So Grace, the big responsibility managing the student response for an entire school. So tell us a little bit, how is your school set up before COVID-19 for student response engagement? And then what changes did you have to make in spring?
Yes, we use physical clickers and mobile apps before COVID-19. So some of the instructors who were already using mobile continued to use it in spring. And then as Macmillan offered the free iClicker mobile app codes, I let instructor know about that. And some of them who are continually using the mobile apps, they were able to move to online very easily because of that offering to the students and stuff. And then, yeah, so that's basically what I've done. Is anything that I have offered from you guys, I took advantage of it. And like what I said, some of the instructors who are already using mobile apps, they did not have any problems at all.
Okay, so they were able to move over seamlessly.
Yes.
That's great to hear from your perspective that was less of a headache. Okay. Now, okay, so that's a quick recap on how spring went. Let's look forward now, and things that we can control and moving forward. So, question for everybody: what is your teaching format going to look like this fall? Will it be in person, online, hybrid, or not sure, or other? Because I'm sure there's many different combinations. But just give me a quick check on what we're looking like this fall. Okay, we've got about 26, 30. Let's see how many people are in. We've got 39 people in. We'll give it a few more seconds for those last responses if you're going to play. Okay, we'll close it off. Okay, so most people are going to be online this fall, with a second to hybrid, couple not sure, couple in person, and a couple answered E, but I did not have an option for that. So I'm curious what that is. Okay, so that's kind of where we are for fall, Matt, Selena, and Grace, to give you an idea as we move forward. So let's talk through really quickly. Let's go through these one by one. And Selena, we'll start with you for online courses. How are you going to facilitate student engagement in online courses? So first off, how often are you going to plan to meet with students live online per week?
Good question. So at the moment, I'm thinking I will meet with everybody. Now I have 400 students, so still trying to work out the details, but I think I'll be able to meet with each person in a smaller group at least once per week.
Okay. And then to our next question, how are you planning on keeping students engaged? And so both from your synchronous online courses to any other asynchronous work, how are you planning to infuse engagement into your course?
Right, that's the million-dollar question. I made so many videos in the spring quarter and had little questions peppered throughout. Thought that visuals were great. I really tried really hard to make them engaging, and I still didn't get the views that they need to be giving me, or they need to be giving the material rather. So I will be building in. I'm trying some new softwares where you can build in some questions, but I think I'll. Because I have been using Clicker and so comfortable with it on our face-to-face, especially, I'll be using either the quizzing function for my upper division students that have the team-based learning approach. So they're in permanent teams and they sort of work together to answer some questions. And then for the intro course, I'll use the new assignment feature for the asynchronous parts where they're watching my videos. And then when we do our check-ins, I'll just do the normal polling, because then I can just ask sort of whatever questions I want, whatever students are having issues with or comments with, or whatever news has happened that day. It's really easy and flexible for me just to sort of ask questions on the fly that way. So I guess I'm using all three: the polling in person and the quizzing in person for the team-based learning, and then the assignment for the asynchronous.
Okay, and so just to give folks an idea, this is the iClicker toolbar. So this is where Solina will use polling, just like I've been using with you guys. And then this is the quizzing part of the app that you can push quizzing down to students. And then the assignments app we'll talk about a little bit more. That's for asynchronous. So you're going to be across the board using every feature. Okay. Oh, I'm sorry. I totally forgot to show this. This was one of your visuals that we had in the slide deck for you.
Yeah, there's a couple good resources out there, but Derek Breff's book about sort of, I think sometimes we get our blinders are on about what multiple choice questions can be used for. And I'm always looking to multiple choice to do the heavy lifting because I have so many students. But you can do, especially with the target questions, you can do a lot of different types of questions. So I'm always writing myself to try to get the breadth in there, not just the depth and the different levels on Bloom's taxonomy, but also different types of questions.
That's a really good point. Okay, let's go on to hybrid. So Matt, you're up, facilitating student engagement in hybrid courses. You're going to be teaching in that format this fall. Couple of questions here. So what will your course meetings look like for fall? And how are you going to keep students engaged in, the live sessions? And can you also speak to if you're doing video, if you're going to stream it, and how you're tackling that?
Right. So our plan right now is to have some of our students in the classroom, but not all of them on any given day. And so I have a class of say 90. I can have a third of them there any of the given days. And so I'm hoping that whatever I'm doing in the classroom, I'm going to be able to stream. And so I can use, say, PowerPoints, a document camera to show some of my demonstrations. I can have an iPad where I'm showing how to work a problem. And that will actually be shown to the students both in the room and those who are online. And for those in the room, when I ask clicker questions, like on the left-hand side, they're going to be socially distanced, but what's nice is they're still going to be able to have that conversation. And those people who are by themselves, say on the right, are going to get that same polling experience. Now, one of the things that I think is critical for us to remember is if there's any way for us to get students together outside of class, where they're, say, physically distanced, but they can still interact, that's going to be really important. So I'm going to try to get some buddies for those freshmen that they sit together when I do synchronous lectures, and they have conversations and they talk about what's going on so that they're really ingrained whether they're in the room or not. And so that's one of the reasons why I think that the ability to use iClicker in this situation is going to be really, really helpful. So with the video, what I'm hoping to do is actually have all of the videos being recorded, and so those can actually be watched later for some of those students who are not going to be able to attend synchronously. And at the same time, there's chat functions with everything. I have a student who will actually be attending my lecture who's going to watch the chat, and anything that comes up in the chat, they will actually bring up to me in real time. So if I'm not getting that through the responses from the iClicker, I can get real pointed questions from those students. So changing it so that the back channel is actually open and I'm still getting those responses from the students, because what the student responds to on a question like this is really important for me to know whether they're getting that material. Now, in the live sessions, let's see, I can actually track them, and that's one of the things that we're going to have to look at as a university, is making sure that we don't lose those students. And so what I'm going to do is actually have assignments. So anyone has to do an assignment later. And so those of you who've taught before, there's those theories of teach, test, test, test. So I'm going to take every clicker question that I asked that session, and then I'm going to have it as one of those post-session assignments. So they'll see exactly the same questions, but it will be a review to see whether they can actually still answer those same questions. And I know it's kind of, they can cheat through that all they want, but it is a way to get them to engage in the material after they've seen it that first time. So I'm going to have that engaged live session, but I'm also going to give them the chance to, if something comes up, that they're not going to miss that material.
Sorry, I was on mute. You've got quite the complex scenario here, Matt. Just a quick question. What is your breakup of how many students in class versus how many students watching the video outside of class?
So what I'm thinking, if I have 90 students, I can only have 30 in the room at a time. So 2/3 of them are not there. And that's the thing, is that when I think, oh, 60 kids are going to get on their computers every day at the same time, that's not going to work. So that's why I want that recording feature. But I do want them to have that consistency that comes from, if there's a time and place that they can be sitting down thinking about physics for that 1 hour a day, it's going to help them get there. So that's why, even though I only get to 1/3 in the room at any given time, if I only see them once a week, I don't think that's enough good interaction. And so adding in the video component of that, where they're following along, they're watching me work problems, is going to be helpful to them.
Okay.
And so this is, of course, the assignment section that we're all excited about.
Yeah, so, and this is what you were pointing to. So you're going to have students who watch the video later go through these assignments with the video. So they'll go through the actual polling questions just like they were in class, right?
Right, exactly. And that's what Solina was saying, was that she's going to have these types of questions, you know, after they watch a video. And so they have it still built into their iClicker or their brief feature. So students have less things to kind of go to.
Okay. Well, you guys, it seems like you guys have both any possible scenario tackled from an online and hybrid standpoint. So let's flip over to across university. So for any admins on the call, this is for you. So Grace, let's talk about what you're going to be up against. So what formats will your school be using for instruction? And let's talk about that first, like the different formats. And I pulled this for you from your website.
Sure. Thank you. So we have 4 different possible formats. As everybody knows what in-person is all about. And then you might be thinking about hybrid, remote, and online. Well, we kind of define them differently. So for hybrid, an instructor will be in the classroom with some students in the classroom and then some students someplace else. And then for remote, we meet virtually using Zoom. So that is asynchronous type of teaching. And then for online, we don't have a standard course meeting. These are our regular online, online classes, right? But what's good about this is that whether you are in these 4 formats, I am planning on recommending the assignment features to all of my faculty members. I think for the reason of a student is not gonna be in face-to-face because they feel like if they are sick, in my university, if you are sick, you should not be coming to class. So that's the reason why assignment feature is so timely. Thank you, Macmillan, for that. I will be recommending that to all these types of formats. And also I will be recommending the quizzing portion because we are trying to discontinue the Scantron because of high touch. So essentially, like what we're saying, we will utilize anything, any feature like assignment and quizzing for all of iClicker formats. And after Thanksgiving, it doesn't matter of what format you are going to be teaching, everything will be online. So that's where we are right now.
Okay, so that's going to be important. Like you said, you're having everybody use mobile, and then so when you go online on Thanksgiving, you're going to be able to transition folks, and so you'll use the assignments feature with your remote setting, and then you can use any of the iClicker settings across online, hybrid, and in person. So
correct. So as you guys know earlier, I said we were using a combination of physical clickers and mobile apps. Well, for now, I have been, recommending just to use the devices because of the reason like high flex teaching and it's convalescing and like social distancing. So that is a strongest recommendation that we from LTS have been telling faculty. And in fact, one of my physical clicker instructor just actually sent me an email while this webinar is going on, and he wanted to meet and to know more about the apps because that's what he's going to be using for fall.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so you got your hands full with 4 different formats, Grace.
Yes.
How are you going to be supporting and training instructors with these formats?
Oh, it's no different than any other semester. Almost always they love one-on-one training. So I will be doing that anytime they want. I will meet with them, no problem.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's switch back to let's ask the group another question. And so I'm going to turn this on as a short answer question. Click back your REFAPs or your browser with the REFAP open to answer. What do you anticipate your biggest challenges to be this fall? You only have 140 characters to answer, so really focus on what your biggest challenges are this fall. And while you're answering, let's pitch that same question to our panelists. So Solina, why don't we start with you on this one? What do you anticipate your biggest challenges to be this fall?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll be moving from asynchronous to partially synchronous. So there's some terrain I'm just not familiar with. Also, things are changing for students all the time, I think. So I anticipate engagement still going to be an issue, especially for incoming first-year students. And so I'm really committed to trying to make, like Matt was talking about, peer instruction and little communities a thing. But since I don't know exactly what's going to be coming up for people, and on the other hand, I have graduating seniors who have a completely different set of challenges, right? So especially for those graduating seniors, I think what I may do, because we're in uncharted territory, I may actually have a conversation with them about, like, how do we do attendance? How should we think about these things within reason, right? Within limits, but sort of make the class compact, or maybe even make parts of the syllabus a little bit more democratic to get buy-in. But I do anticipate the challenges of engagement will be the biggest probably for me.
Okay. Matt, what would be your answer to this?
I think shifting both the student expectations and my own expectations about what learning has to look like. For years we've had the in class, and so now we're actually moving to something that's different, and having only a third of the students there with 2/3 online is just going to look different. So my biggest challenge is to sort of excite myself to the prospect of something that's new and different, and work towards that, and hopefully bring those students along on that journey of this is different. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be sort of the dog in the room full of fire. It can actually be something that's positive.
That's great. Okay, Grace, question to you.
I think one of the biggest challenges that I'm anticipating is how I can recommend to faculty about student engagement. When I said that is because we are redoing some of the rooms, and we are converting them into different or the rooms are already there. They were not used to be classrooms. So these are like physical spaces on campus that I have not seen visually. So from right now, if I'm going to be recommending certain things, because I don't know if Wi-Fi is there, I don't know where the computer or the Crestron panel is, that might be, as of today, that might be one of my biggest challenge because I'm very visual. And then another thing would be, managing support for both students and faculty when I cannot visit them face to face, because at times they can send tickets, of course, but if there is already like 2 times or 3 times emailing me or going back and forth, I normally would meet with faculty. I'll be in their classroom or in their offices, or I will be meeting students face to face. So that would be I know that will be one of my biggest challenges because I cannot visit them face to face.
Exactly. Okay, let's see what the rest of the group has said here. We've got about 33 responses, so I'm going to cut that off. What does everybody think their biggest challenges are going to be? Let's make this bigger. Students showing up online. Solina, I'd love for you to speak to that. I'm pretty sure there'll be a question about that. Being able to complete a full semester of hands-on lab experiments. Student engagement, that's answered a few times. Engaging students again. Mandated synchronous only teaching, and engagement keeps coming up. Time management, online is much more time intensive than face-to-face or hybrid. Engagement keeps coming up non-stop. In fact, if we click over to the word cloud, engagement is one of our biggest words that comes up. Let's see if there's anything else. Any reactions from the panel to these responses that are coming through? Matt, Solina, or Grace, feel free to chime in.
I liked the fact that students was in there so often, because I know we become cynical as things somehow become a little bit overwhelming. But when we look at what we do on a daily basis, it's about the students, and the fact that we're worrying about engagement is actually a good thing, because it means that we're going to give it our best effort, and we're going to try to make sure that we keep those connections that we know work for the students. And so how that looks in anyone's courses is going to be different. So somebody said something about hands-on labs. Well, we only can have half our kids in the classroom at one time. That's going to be tough for us, but we're going to figure out how to give them the best possible experience within the constraints that we have. And that's one of the things that I think the iClicker is going to do for engagement, is we can think up of new ways to do that.
Fantastic. And approaching it, I love your sense of enthusiasm and optimism. Sorry, was somebody else going to say something?
This is Solina. I was just going to say that, yeah, I'm also heartened by how much we're focusing on this. But coming at it from an economics perspective, I'm always thinking about cost benefit stuff, and thinking about, all the things that we know increase engagement. A lot of them are, at least that we're doing online, a lot of them are really high cost, really engaging instructor videos. And, if we're going back to teaching face-to-face in the spring, it's this huge time investment. And so I'm always thinking about how do we minimize the investment? And I think there's some low-hanging fruit here with iClickers and whatnot. But just to me, I'm thinking about student engagement, also the benefits of it, right? It actually, there's a positive feedback, or whatever. There's feedback that helps me get more rejuvenated for class as well. So anyway, I think it's reciprocal a little bit, and I'm excited to hopefully some of us will break through and we'll find engagement, because the students want it. They really do.
Yeah, so that's actually a good point. I'm going to skip ahead. We're going to come back to that other question, but since we started going down this road, let's go on to one of our last questions before we go to full Q&A with the whole group. So why is facilitating student engagement so important? Let's see, who wants to start? Solina, why don't we start with you? And I know you had provided this visual for me.
Sure. So in my years leading this faculty learning communities, this just kept coming back up, the testing effect, or Matt talked about lecture, teach. I think and what we see, I think most of us see from our students, is this desire for more practice questions, and they'll do anything, right, to get more practice questions. And I think that's right. I think there's something about, especially about peer instruction, that really we need to flip our traditional lecture model on its head. And so, you know, thinking about how lecture is really ineffective, and how when students have to teach others or explain it to others, that really increases their retention. That's an important thing, and that's actually, you know, I think as we let go of the lecture model, hopefully, or keep it to smaller lectures, I think that we're going to see better learning, and students, you know, it's more comfortable and more passive for all of us to sit back and lecture and for them to listen. But if we want, you know, we truly want learning to happen, I think we need to be pushing on the questions a little bit more. So that one of the reasons I have always used Clicker is that it's just so easy to do that. We talk about these, you know, the cost of investing in changing our pedagogy. To me, this is a low cost one.
Okay. All right. So Matt, just continuing with the instructor viewpoint, why do you think facilitating student engagement is so important?
Well, I just want to comment, Solina, being an economics professor, I love that idea that you're bringing in your specialty to how you teach even. And those are the kind of fun things that we can think about of, you know, what is the cost basis for me to meet every student one-on-one? Well, with a 400-person class, that doesn't work, but how can we economically do that to get the most bang for our buck? And I think using our time effectively is so important. And, you know, this student engagement question is really critical for making sure that they're playing with your material. So I always think of, everyone always says that in a language course, oh, you need to practice your language, you need to speak and write. But I would say that in any discipline, including physics, you actually have to practice. So you have to practice with the language of physics. You have to, you know, think aloud and discuss the ideas. And those are the kind of things that the stopping and just saying things out loud help. Now, if you're in the classroom and you have that think, pair, share, that's really critical. But I would say that even if you're sitting there telling students, repeat after me, and they're in their own dorm rooms and they're saying something, that's helping them hear things out loud. And that's a student engagement type thing. And of course, then we go back to the clickers where I get immediate feedback on how well I have presented the material and how well they're receiving that material. So when I think about engagement, the iClicker really helps me understand, even if they're not in the room, whether I'm getting across to them. And so I think that's going to be a critical part of how I gauge how things are going with a little bit of demonstration, and then I'm testing them on that knowledge immediately, and then offering ways to get them up to, you know, get them up the Bloom's taxonomy, as we saw in that slide.
Okay, perfect. So Grace, from an administrator's perspective, and then also I know, you know, in your introduction, we went over this, you're studying this right now. Why is facilitating student engagement so important for you?
You know what? This is really a timely discussion. I'm currently working on my dissertation on the effects of student response system. And my literature reviews span over about 25 years of research. But I just like to really read from a few findings from at least 2 of my journal articles. This one is from Heaslip, Donovan, Cullen from 2014. They said that the study described here found that that students became more engaged when clickers were in use in the lecture room than when they were not. And then another findings from Landrum. Actually, Eric Landrum is from Boise State. He said, I participate more in class as a result of clicker use, and then they gave the percentage here, 83%. Clickers positively affect my level of attention, about 82%. Using clickers encourages me to attend class, 83%. Clickers help me understand lecture material better, 77%. And clickers allow me to participate in class when I would normally not participate in class, and that's about 76%. So one of the study is a smaller class, and one of the study is a bigger class. I think the literature itself can speak for itself why it is important to facilitate student engagement. And I am more than happy to send the references, of course, so you guys can read them. And I do not want to bore you with my dissertation, but I'm very, very excited with what I'm kind of seeing right now, why student engagement is so important using student response system.
Okay, we'll have to set up a whole other webinar for your whole dissertation. Okay, so you guys kind of went over why facilitating student engagement is so important. Open question here, but why iClicker for that? So Matt, let's start with you.
It's easy. It's as I like to say a long time ago, I could get my father, who is a philosophy professor, to use this with a 15-minute demo. So there's a lot of robustness in it. It's always there for me to get instant feedback, and I really think that that's helpful for the student, so we both know where they are.
Okay, Solina, let's go to you.
Yeah, I would echo that. It's very easy. It's pretty bomb-proof. I have tried the others. One thing I really like about it is that it's pretty flexible. So I think I mentioned, like, I can ask questions on the fly. That's super important to me. And that's, you know, I can plan ahead and bake questions in, or I can just pop questions as they are needed in class. And so that's a huge one to me. And the fact that they can engage on low stakes formative assessment, so they're not punished when they try things and fail, is huge to me. And that's, I think, a key use of Clicker for my classes and probably for most people that use them.
Okay, and then Grace, from an admin perspective, why are you supporting iClicker? Why is that the system that you guys use?
Yeah, I love the functionality of iClicker, and then it seems like kind of like buying a car. They're all kind of the same, but one of the best part as an administrator is to have a solid support from you guys, and that is very, very important in any tool that you support. So that's the reason why I'm supporting iClicker. And I know that I can trust the product when I can recommend it to faculty members.
Okay, cool. Thank you guys for answering that. Okay, so now we are to question time. I feel like we did really good on time. Thank you, Matt, Solina, and Grace, for going through all those questions that we set beforehand and answering all those. So more questions from the group. I believe we have Lindsay on. Lindsay, what is our first question that we have?
Okay, our first question, and I think this is for Solina, is how are you going to handle attendance for your online classes?
That's a good question. So I will probably do the same thing I did for my in-person classes. Now, I have to say at the sort of right out of the gate, I haven't had a lot of problems with attendance, at least in the in-person classes. I'm not sure how that's going to look here, but typically what I do is I have any number of questions in each lecture on the iClicker, and I give them, I'm not a person that loves to sort of, I know many of my other faculty in our department and our college sort of like take screenshots of their Zoom meetings, and like, you know, they have certain rules about what, you know, how people are engaging. Are they looking, you know, do they keep their eyes open during the Zoom? For me, it's more useful to have something where they're actually interacting. So on attendance, I take attendance by the Clicker questions, and I do it, each Clicker question is worth 2 points, and they get 1 point just for answering anything. So that's their like attendance showing up. And then of course they're motivated to try to get it right as well. That's the second point. So they get 2 points per question, and just for showing up, they get, you know, they get some amount of points. And that works. They seem to be really sensitive to even just a few points.
Great. I think this next question might be for Grace. When you have a maximum number of students who can learn in person, how do you decide who can be in person? Will it be the same students all term? For example, will you set a cap and the first 30 who choose in person will have that option?
That is really a great question, and that is a discussion we're having right now. But I think basically as of today, that depends on, for example, let me back up. So it depends on the classroom, just kind of like what you're saying on how many classes. So that really depends on the student if they want to participate online or face-to-face. But if I'm not mistaken, we are putting some lines or markings to where students can sit. For example, I'm going to be teaching normally like in a 50 seat classroom or so. Now that shrunk to 23. So you might have at least to get that idea of for my classroom. So really this depends on how often this classroom is going to be used and how big the classroom is going to be used. But essentially, we are giving the the decision to the students, and that is as of today.
And Matt, I don't know if you could speak to that too, because I know, I believe you said 30 of your students can attend in person and they attend one time per week. So they basically work in pods of 30, is that right?
So, right, so what I'm trying to do is say, all right, here's your cohort of, you're the Monday cohort, and then I have a Wednesday cohort, and I have a Friday cohort. And what I'm hoping to do is work on getting them to see each other as their fellow students like we would in a normal classroom, so that the days that they're not in class, that they also have somebody to go to. But I will actually assign them specific days that they are, quote, required to be there. Now, we're not requiring anyone to show up, but if we have that day of where I can say, hey, why weren't you there today? I think I can cajole them into having that in-person experience if they feel comfortable with that.
Okay, next question, I believe this is for Matt. What other creative ways have you thought of to use iClicker?
Oh, so when we went all online, one of the things that I did was I had my tests on Monday, and my students said, we need to have sort of like an office hour or something before the test. And so I came up with this idea that I would just ask questions for an entire hour on a Sunday. And I used iClicker, so anyone who wanted to could show up. It wasn't required, but I would put a question up and I would wait, and the students would answer by iClicker. So this was a great way for me to test their ability, and what I was getting was whether they knew it or not. And then all of a sudden I would get the chat function to come up, and if there was a need, I could actually use my iPad to maybe sketch out an answer that was a little bit more lengthy. But using this as a review session, I knew the pacing that I needed based on how quickly those answers were coming in. And so it was one of those things where I didn't count it for anything, but it really helped me do something that if the students wanted to be there, they could, and it helped me figure out how quickly I went through that material for review.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so we have a question from an instructor. This, I guess, is more directed towards either Matt or Solina. So my biggest challenge has been to teach students whose computer skills are very low, and students with visual and audio impairments. How do you deal with that?
So I guess at our university, if somebody is having those, they go through our Students with Disabilities office, and we then work with how we can roll that material out to them in a way that's good for them. Oftentimes it's somebody, we actually have a closed captioning system where a lecture can actually be, they can get all that material off of it. And there's been a few times where I've done things a little bit differently based on requests from those students. And with everything, it's how can I change something that doesn't affect the other students but can enhance the for the student who needs it. And there's a lot of ways to do that, but I really try to do that on an individual level.
Okay, great. We've gotten several questions about pricing for iClicker. Lindsay, do you want to take that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can go to iclicker.com/pricing. That's where we have all of our pricing listed out. In general, our the iClicker Reef app, which students can download the app onto their phone or access it through any browser, that's about $15 per 6 months, and we sell that up to 5-year access. And then we have for remotes, if you're solely in person, we've got those prices listed up on the website too. So we can follow up with that link.
Okay, great. This question was directed towards Matt specifically, but if anyone else wants to chime in. With iClicker, how do you keep the gradebook straight with the mix of synchronous and asynchronous? I'm considering using iClicker for 10 recitation sections of 35 students for each section run by TAs, but I'm concerned how I will manage that.
Well, there are ways to piece that out. The main thing is there's a new scoring feature that says, say you have those 10 separate sessions. If you can make each of those sessions worth a total of 10 points, which can now be done, then it makes it so they're all equal. Now, for me, I'm going to just delete some of the sessions that I'm not counting or give them 0 points because I'm not counting those. But if you give those specific sessions 0 points, they still have the ability to use the review feature, the flashcard feature that they have. So I do it by going back to the sessions I don't want to count and just giving those zeros.
Okay, great. This question could be for any of you. Is there a large learning curve for students to understand iClicker? My primary concern is too many tools. For example, students already have Canvas. I will be implementing Achieve and Flipgrid for the online classes. I'm concerned about technology overload and the learning curve if I add more things in.
Hey, you sound just like me. Those are the things I used the last spring. So I will say that I've never had problems with iClicker except when the iPhones went over to the no home button. They couldn't figure out how to. But that was not an iClicker issue. That was of students with a new phone not being able to figure out how to do any of their apps. Yeah, but the question's a good one, and it's like, at what point do we get technology overload? And so I'm happy to say that iClicker is embedded in Achieve, and so that's like one less click for the students. All those things can be embedded into Canvas as well, with help from your, from your tech folks. And so while and Flipgrid is also embedded inside Canvas, or at least it is at our institutions, but it's pretty straightforward. So I will say most of these are doing so much of a better job of like being truly, the user interface is just really streamlined and easy not to get lost in. So even if you don't have all the integrations, I think your choice of what you put on your plate for your students they're all pretty tasty and easy to chew and swallow. Sorry to bring food into the equation.
Now we all need one, Solina, thanks.
This is Grace. My recommendation to faculty listening here, please utilize your CTL or your instructional technologist people. I know in each university is kind of different the way we are set up. Please utilize them. Don't hesitate to call us. I am sure that we are more than happy to help you and let you know how we can learn together as well.
Perfect. And I can just mention, so this question specifically mentioned Canvas, but iClicker does integrate with the other major learning management systems, so Blackboard, Moodle, Brightspace or Desire to Learn, and Sakai. So the next question, even when you run a live class, students may easily be distracted. What can you do to prevent this?
is I've used the focus mode, which is so that's one of the things that has come up. This is one of the things we talked about probably 10 years ago when we started thinking about phone use. And there's something called focus mode that the student will go into when they go into a session. And what happens is if they go out of the app, it keeps track of that. And it tells them how many times they've gone out and the total length of time. Now, those reports are sent to the instructor, but I think the biggest thing that I did with my class was remind them that being engaged in the classroom is really important, and they get a quick little summary at the end of the class of how well they did. And it was one of the things that a few students said, just, you know, it wasn't intrusive at all, but it was nice to get the right score at the end. So if they had no instances of getting out of focus, they were kind of actually proud of themselves. And so it's a little bit of gaming, but it's also getting them to understand what you're trying to do and explaining why you're using that feature. So.
And I just dropped a link to a website that we have on the focus feature if people are interested in learning more about it. And you just turn this on in your settings in iClicker Cloud for your course. And any student using the iClicker Reef app, whether it's an online synchronous course or an in-person synchronous course, can use it.
Great. We did get a question about how the assignment feature in iClicker might be different from using questions directly in Blackboard or in whatever learning management system. I don't know if anyone can speak to that.
Yeah, so I was wondering, Matt, can you speak to differences there, and then I can add on?
Right. So the main thing I like about iClicker is it's easier in that if you put together a PDF, so you have your questions all in your some slides, you put together a PDF, you upload that, and you're done. Every time that I'm trying to program something into my Canvas quizzing tool, it takes a long time. And so it's actually much simpler if you just want to have that quick quiz. So I think the ease of using it is much better than we have with some of the other systems that, yes, we have to use for different things like timed quizzes, you know, things that have, you know, you're moving your questions around and all that kind of stuff. There's more robust systems, but this one has some nice features in it that Lindsay can talk about.
Yeah, but basically you actually stole everything I was going to say. So yeah, I mean, the key difference is you just upload the questions and then can put them into the system and put them out asynchronously for students to get to at any time frame within the time you have it open. Some of the feedback that we got whenever we were researching the assignments feature was that because it's in iClicker, it felt more formative and it felt more low stakes. It didn't feel as, you know, quote unquote serious as quizzing through a different system. So that's one of the differences that we've observed. If you're interested in it, we've got some information on the website about it, and you can contact us as well, and we'll follow up. Also, sorry, we have a webinar on Thursday on this. I'm completely losing it. Sign up for our webinar Thursday to get a full tour of the feature.
Thanks, Lindsay. I think this question might again be for Matt because it came in around the time you were talking earlier, but you mentioned a book that you used for, that you recommended for online teaching.
That's actually Solina.
Oh, Solina, sorry. Can you just remind
no worries.
The name and author?
So you got it. My favorite one is by Ambrose and others, and it's called How Learning Works. Is that what it's called? And what I showed here was a Derek Bruff book, Teaching with Classroom Response Systems. That's also excellent. It's just a little more narrowly focused. But the How Learning Works by Ambrose et al. Is for like an all-inclusive, and then the Derek Bruff book would be about how to use the iClickers effectively.
Okay, great. Guess we have time for maybe one or two more questions.
Yeah, let's ask one more because I know we're getting close.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm teaching in the summer online and will again in the fall semester. Is it possible to use iClicker with Zoom?
I can take that, and then Solina, if you want to add on, absolutely yes. You just like we're doing now, we're in a video conferencing software, and I have iClicker open and can just run questions. That's the same way it works in Zoom. You just share your desktop, start your iClicker session, and then ask away with questions. So, and Solina, if you want to speak to that of like how you're going to use it in your online class sessions, I don't know if you're teaching through Zoom or another system.
Yeah, it'll be through Zoom, and exactly what Lindsay said is right. I also wanted to make sure, so I'll be using the polling questions, which as you can see that Lindsay could toggle, she could decide how long to give. But on my formal team-based learning class, they have to have timed quizzes, and so that will happen when we're all together, like as synchronously as possible in a Zoom class, and then I'll start the quiz. Why don't I use the Zoom polling feature? Because like Matt said, it's just all these other tools are not as easy to use as Clicker. Clicker is that investment, you know, that can pay off. I can use iClicker again when I go back to the normal classroom, and once I've figured out how to use it, which doesn't take long, I can't do that with Zoom. So I want it to be as flexible as possible. So I use it for timed questions, for opinion questions, anything synchronously, and then assignments now for asynchronous.
And I would just add on to that whatever's on the screen is sent to the person's phone. And so it doesn't matter what system you're using. It takes that screenshot, sends it out to the person's phone. They can answer it from there. So it's a very simple system that you don't have to preload everything.
Great. And then maybe just one last question. I think this is for Matt. Can you just briefly explain what Flip It for physics is?
Flip It is it's basically a system that has very professionally done videos. And when I was beta testing this, they talked about eye tracking movements between the difference of expert learners and novice learners for a subject. And so these they've really put the time into understanding how to put together a video. And what it does is it has the video first, then it has that question, did they get what they just did? But it's already pre-done. And so instead of me trying to recreate that, I'm going to use that as the basis, and then I'm going to fold in the stuff that is, I think is a little important, or that I want to add on to. So it's using something that's established, but then understanding what I can do to make that come alive for my students.
I just sent that link through the chat as well. So I know you're 2 minutes over. We had so many good questions though, and Lindsay, I know we probably have a whole bunch more, but we want to be respectful of folks' time. So we're gonna end today. If you did have questions that were unanswered, we will get answers to you. Additionally, we'll be sending out a recording of this webinar within a day or two, so look for that in your email inbox. Feel free to forward it along to any of your colleagues. I know everybody has these questions on their minds of how is fall going to go and how are we going to tackle this. We hope that we gave you guys you know, some insight into how, you know, these different scenarios are going to go. I just want to say a huge thank you again to Grace, Solina, and Matt for joining us, taking your time to explain what we're going to do this fall. And that is all we have for today. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks so much. Good luck, everybody.